We listen to our customers, and many of our customers have told us that sometimes they need to know the older version as well as the newer version of popular software programs. So, to help you stay both flexible and up to date, we've designed QuickStudy videos to be used with the latest versions as well as the earlier versions of your software programs. This could be a lifesaver in a tight situation. Where major differences exist between the versions, the keystroke sheet shows you both methods. Any suggestions you may have to improve our packages would be appreciated.
In this video, we'll show how to use the menus in Lotus, how to move around in the worksheet, how to enter information into the cells, how to insert columns and rows, and how to move things around on the screen. We'll show how to use the @sum and other functions, how to get help on the screen, how to create graphs. We'll show how to make macros and how to use macros. We'll also show how to use the database features of Lotus. When we first open the Lotus 123 program, we have a blank worksheet on the screen. The worksheet is made up of cells where we can enter information. The cells are designated by a cell address. This cell that's highlighted here is A1. Notice the cell address here at the top. This is worksheet A, and cell A1 is currently highlighted. If we move down to the next cell, this is cell A2. Notice A2 here. All of the cells in the worksheet can be identified using letters and numbers. The letters represent the columns, and the numbers represent the rows. You can have hundreds of columns and thousands of rows in a Lotus worksheet. We're moving the highlighting each cell using the arrow keys. Use the down arrow to move down, and the up arrow to move up, and the left and right arrows to move from side to side. We can move to a specific cell in the worksheet using the Go To command. This is done by pressing the F5 key. Then we type in an address to go to. Notice it currently says A1. All we have to do is type on the keyboard a cell address. Let's type C7. Press a C on the keyboard, and then the number 7, and then press the Enter key. And notice now that cell C7 is highlighted, and the cell address is here at the top. A quick way to get back to cell A1 from anywhere in the worksheet is to use the Home key. Press Home, and cell A1 is highlighted again. We return to the beginning of the worksheet. Notice that there are 20 rows visible on the screen. We can move up and down in the worksheet a screenful at a time using the page up and page down keys. Press page down. Now we're at row 21. Press page down again, we're at 41. We're skipping down 20 rows each time. Page up moves back up 20 rows at a time. When cell A1 is when any cell is highlighted, as cell A1 currently is, we can type on the keyboard to enter information into the cell. Let's type a number into this cell. Type the number, including decimals if you wish, and then press enter. The number appears here at the top and also in the cell. Let's move to another cell and type another number in. And press enter. We may also type words or letters into the cells. These are known in Lotus as labels. Let's move to the right and up one. Type the word income and press enter. Notice the word income appears here and also in the cell. To change the information in a cell, we use the F2 key. First, highlight the cell, then press F2. This brings the information in the cell back to this edit line on the screen, where we can edit it. Let's use our backspace key and backspace to remove this and then type in a new word. We can do the same with the numbers. Use the arrow, the left arrow, to move to the left to highlight this cell. Then press F2 again. And the number is brought back to the edit line where we can edit it. Backspace, and then type a new number. And press enter. And then when you press enter, the number is actually replaced in the cell. Now we'll show how to access the menu where we can perform many of the commands in Lotus 1-2-3. We access the menu using the slash key. Press a slash, and the menu appears at the top of the screen. The commands in the menu can be selected by highlighting them with the arrow keys. We're moving with the right arrow to the right and highlighting each one of these menu commands in turn. They go all the way across the top of the screen. We'll talk about many of these commands during the course of this video. Once a command is highlighted, you may press enter to choose that command. These commands may also be activated by typing the first letter of the command. The first letter of the commands in the first line will cause that command to be performed. If we move to the File command, we can see that we have a submenu of other commands that are part of the File command. And then if we press enter while File is selected, now those subcommands have been moved to the top. And the second line gives an explanation of what each command is. Retrieve means to replace the current file with a file from the disk. Save means copy a file from memory to a file on disk, and so forth. This gives an explanation of what the commands are. Then we move back to the previous menu using the escape key on the keyboard. Press escape, and we move back to the original menu, and then press escape again to turn off the menus. Let's bring up the menu again by pressing /. Then, of course, you can also choose the different menu commands by typing the first letter of the command. Let's go to the File menu again by typing the letter F on the keyboard. Type the letter F. Now we have the File commands, the sub-menu for File. Now we can choose items from this menu by typing the first letter again. If we want to retrieve a file, for instance, we can type the letter R. Now we get a list of files that we can retrieve from the disk. We'll talk more about retrieving files in a few minutes. If you ever need help with any of the commands in Lotus, you can use the Help menu. We access the Help menu using the F1 key. Press F1 to bring up the Help index. Then use the arrow keys to highlight the information you need. To get information about function keys, highlight that topic and then press Enter. Now we have a screen full of information about function keys. And we have a list of the different function keys and what they do. Leave the Help screen and return to the normal screen. Press Escape. Just press the Escape key. And now we're back to the normal Lotus screen. To quit Lotus or exit the program, press / to activate the menu. Then you can press the letter Q for quit. Quit is over on the far right-hand side of the menu. Or you can press the left arrow. When you do that, it moves the highlight one to the left, which wraps around back to the other side. And now quit is highlighted. So you can press a letter Q to quit, or you can highlight the command like this, and then press Enter. Notice when we highlight quit, we have a description of what quit means. It means to end the 1, 2, 3 session. It says here. Press Enter, and we have the choice of No currently highlighted. That means do not end the 1, 2, 3 session, return to the ready mode. Or if we highlight Yes or press Y, this means to end the 1, 2, 3 session. Now if we press Enter again, we get a warning that the things we've done in our worksheet haven't been saved. Do we want to end 1, 2, 3 anyway? If the answer is no, then we'll be given the opportunity to save the worksheet. If we want to end 1, 2, 3 anyway, we highlight Yes or press the letter Y, and then exit. Of course, the real power of a program, a spreadsheet program like Lotus, is the ability to do calculations. Here in this worksheet, we've entered some labels and also some numbers representing the May, June, and July totals for rental sales and service. We'd like to figure the totals for these categories in each month, and also figure a quarter total for all 3 months. What we need to do is enter formulas into these cells. The formulas will calculate the values in the cells and place those values in the total cell. Let's move to this cell, and enter a formula. formula must begin with either a plus sign, a minus sign, or a parentheses. Let's type, what we want to do is add cells C2, C3, and C4, and place the total in this cell. Plus, hold down Shift, and type this key for plus. Then, type in the cell address for the first cell, which is C2. C2. Then type a plus again. And then C3. Then type another plus. And C4. This is a formula. Now all we have to do is press Enter. And the total of the 3 cells above appears in the total cell. Let's move to the right and do another one. Press plus D2, it's D2 this time, plus D3 plus D4, and press Enter. And the total for that column appears in that cell. Now we've entered the formulas. We've entered formulas and we're ready to save this worksheet on the disk. To save, we press the slash key, choose F for File, now we can enter the name of the file. Here we have the disk drive and the directory, and this is currently showing all of the files that are within this directory. We can type in a new name for our file by pressing Escape, and the cursor now is here, and we can type in a name for our file. Let's just call it Income, and press Enter. Now it's been saved on the disk. Once we've given our file or our worksheet a name, then when we want to save it again, all we have to do is press slash to activate the menu, then press F for File, and S for Save. And it already has the name there. Then all we have to do is press Enter. And then it asks us if we want to replace or make a backup copy or to cancel the command. Let's choose Replace by typing an R, and it automatically replaces the file. Now we'll show how to print a worksheet. To print a worksheet, press the slash key to activate the menu. Then press the letter P for print. Notice printer is highlighted, which means send print output directly to a printer. This is what we want to do. We can just type P for printer. Now we need to specify a range to print. What part of the worksheet we want to have printed. Press Enter again. And now we can see the worksheet. We need to specify a range. To specify a range for print or many of the other operations in Lotus, you first press the period key to anchor the range at the current location of the highlight, the current highlighted cell. This will anchor the beginning of the range here where the cell is highlighted. Notice it's A1. Then you just use the arrow keys to move down, and across. Let's just highlight the top portion of this worksheet for printing. We could highlight the entire worksheet if we wanted to. Now notice the range is identified as A1 through F6. And this will change until we press enter. We can move this anywhere we want. Now this is the area we want to print. This is the range. So once we've identified the range like this, we can just press the enter key. And now we're back to the print menu. We've already specified the range. Over on the right, you'll notice we have the command go. To print, you just press a G for go. Then if you have a laser printer, you also need to follow that with page. So you press G for go and then P for page. Let's press G. Remember, of course, that we can also use the arrow keys and highlight G and then press enter. It's the same as pressing a G. Then we'll highlight page and press enter, or we could just press a P on the keyboard. And page is necessary for a laser printer in order for it to advance the paper out of the printer. For a dot matrix printer, all you have to do is press go or the G. Next, we'll show how to use the undo feature in Lotus. Undo will allow us to recover from a mistake. Anything that was deleted can be brought back. It will allow us to undo the last operation. But in order for it to work, you have to turn the feature on. You have to enable the feature first. And you have to do this before you make the mistake or before you need to undo something. To turn on undo, press /, then W for worksheet, G for global, D for default, O for other, then U for undo. Then you notice that enable says turn undo on. It's E for enable. And then finally, U for update. Let's highlight update first and see what it says. It says save new default settings in the configuration file. This will set the default. Undo will be on. And we just press U for update or enter when it's highlighted. Now it's been updated. And remember to get back out of all these menus, we continually press the escape key. And then we're back to the ready mode. Now, let's delete something just to show how we can use undo. We'll delete the information in this cell that's highlighted. Now that cell is empty. Then, to use undo, hold down Alt and press F4. No is highlighted, which means do not undo, but we want yes, which means to undo. We can press a Y or highlight it, and it says undo most recent modifications to the worksheet. Now that yes is highlighted, we just press enter. Now watch the cell, the empty cell, and it comes back. So it recovers from the very from the most recent modification to the worksheet. But you must have undo turned on first before the modification is made in order to be able to undo it. Now, next we'll show how to split the screen. How to split the screen so we can look at two different parts of the same worksheet at the same time. Here we have a worksheet that has a section here, and then as we scroll down, we see there's another section that's further down. To be able to view both of these at once, let's go back up to the top. Holding down the arrow key will move the highlighted cell faster. This is where we'll make the split. Then, to do that, we press slash, then worksheet, then W for window. There's W for window. And then we choose whether or not to split it horizontally or vertically. Let's split it horizontally, type an H. And it splits it right at the current location, the current highlighted cell. Now we can use the arrow keys to move up and down in this part of the worksheet. And we can, again, move to any part of the worksheet in this window. Then, to switch to the other view, we press F6. That puts our highlight or our cursor in the other window. Then in that window we can scroll down until the part that we need comes up. We could of course use page down or page up to move more quickly. Now we can work on two different parts of the worksheet at the same time. And we can use the F6 key to switch from one window to the other. Then, to go back to the normal view, press slash, W for worksheet, and W again for window, and then C for clear. And we're back to the original view, the full page view with just one window. Now we'd like to change the column widths in the entire worksheet. To do this, press slash to bring up the menu. Then press W for worksheet. Notice that's this choice here, worksheet. Press W, then G for global, press a G, and the choice is column width, which is this one here. Of course, you can always use the arrow keys to move over to that choice and then press enter. That does the same thing as pressing the first letter. Now that we've highlighted this, let's press enter on the keyboard. Now it asks us to enter a global column width. Notice that the current column width is 8. We just need to type in a new column width. We just type directly on the keyboard. Let's choose a narrower column. Let's choose 6. Type the number 6 on the keyboard. Notice it changes here. Then press enter. Notice now that all of the columns have gotten narrower. Next we'll show how to insert a column into our worksheet. To do this, we need to first highlight the column where we want to insert, and the new column will be inserted to the left of whatever column you highlight. You only need to highlight one cell in the column. So we want to insert a new column to the left of the May column. Now, on the keyboard, press slash to bring up the menu. Then type a W for worksheet, and now an I for insert, and then C for column. Now we get to enter the column insert range. What this is basically telling Lotus is how many columns we want to insert. Since the range is just one column indicated here, it will only insert one column. If you wanted to insert more than one column, you can expand this range by using the arrow keys. Move the arrow key once to the right, and now since two columns are indicated here, it will actually insert two columns to the left. We only want to insert one column, so go back and then press enter. Now one new column is inserted to the left, and we can go ahead and type our information in there if we wanted to create a column for April, for instance, and fill in the items there. Now we'll show how to delete a column. This is very similar. We're going to go ahead and delete this column that we created. You could delete any column just by highlighting the column first. We'll leave the highlight here where it is and press slash, then W for worksheet, then D for delete. This is delete here. Press D, and then C for column. And enter range of columns to delete. Here we could use the arrow keys and choose more columns to be deleted if we wanted to. We could go either direction. Let's leave it right there and press enter. And now the column is deleted and it's back to the way it was. Next we'll show how to insert and delete a row. It's very similar to inserting and deleting a column. Let's move down to the next row down, and we're going to insert a new row above this row. Rows are always inserted above the highlighted cell. Columns are inserted to the left. Now we're ready to insert. Press slash, W for worksheet, I for insert, and now type R for row. This is the choice here, R for row. Press R, and again we can choose how many rows we want to insert. Let's insert 2 this time. So we change the insert range by pressing the down arrow. This means we're going to insert 2 rows. Notice there's 2 different rows, C2, or cells, C2 and C3 selected here. Now press enter, and 2 rows are inserted. Now we delete the rows using the same method we used for deleting columns. We have the highlight positioned here. Then we type slash for the menu, and W for worksheet, and then D for delete. Then R for row. And enter the range of rows to delete. We'll select those 2 rows, and again you can delete any row, including rows that have information in them. Highlight those and then press enter. And those 2 rows then are deleted, and it goes back to the original appearance of the worksheet. Next we'll show how to delete, move, and copy data in our worksheet. When you're about to perform an operation such as deleting or moving, etc., you can set your highlight, you can highlight the cell where you want to begin first, or you can do it afterwards. The operation varies slightly depending on whether you do it first or later. Let's say first we want to delete a range of data. We want to delete this range here, these last totals in these three columns. We press the slash key, and then R for range, and E for erase. Now, this cell is highlighted, but we want to move down to these cells. There's two ways we can do that. We could just type in the cell addresses. Let's do it this way first. Just begin typing. We want to start with cell D5. So we type D5 on the keyboard, the letter D, and the number 5. Then we need to press a period twice. This indicates a range. And then the final cell will be F5. So we just type an F and then a 5. And this specifies this range of cells, these 3 cells. And then we just press enter. And we've erased those 3 cells and the data that was in those 3 cells. Now we'll show how to move a range of data. Let's say we want to move this part of the worksheet further down in the worksheet. And so we'll press slash for the menu, and then press M for move. Notice now it has this range starting out in the corner with A1. We want to change the range to move down here. Notice in the upper right hand corner, whenever we are at this point, we're in the point mode. It's waiting for us to point to a particular cell on the screen, and we do that of course by moving the arrow keys to that cell. What we're going to do, notice if we use the arrow key to move down now, it starts to block out all of this area, and it's choosing that as the range. Well, we want to reestablish the beginning of the range right here, and we do that by typing a period on the keyboard. You press the period key twice, and now notice that the first cell listed here is A7. That anchors the range there. Then when you press the arrow keys, let's just move the down arrow, it moves this range on down, and now you can highlight the entire range. We're just using the arrow keys, moving down and then moving to the right with the right. So we've highlighted this range. Now we need to move down and pick a new range. First, notice at the top it says enter the range to move from. We've got this range highlighted, and now once that range is highlighted, we just press enter. Now it wants to know the range to move to, and we need to move our cursor down. This time we just move it down, and notice that it changes here as we move it. Now all we need to do is highlight the corner of where the range will be placed. We don't have to specify the entire range. Just highlight the corner and then press enter. And the block of data is moved, the range of data is moved down to that new location. That upper left-hand corner that we specified, and it placed it all in the same location relative to that. Now we're going to show how to erase part of a worksheet. Let's just erase this block of data here. Press the slash key, and the slash key brings the menu back up to the top of the screen. And then we're going to perform a copy. So press C for copy, and it wants to know the range to copy from. We want to copy from C5, so just type in a C and 5 and press enter. And range to copy to, let's move this down to this one cell here, and just copy it to that cell. And all we need to do then is notice that it says D5, and then we just press enter. It copies that formula, and whenever you copy a formula, it copies it notice this formula was adding these cells here. Now this formula adds the cells directly above it. This is the normal way formulas refer to cells. It's just the cells that have a certain position relative to that cell. And we'll talk more about relative and absolute referencing in a minute. Now, we need to show how to copy a cell to a range of cells. Let's move down. This time, let's highlight the cell first. We'll highlight this particular cell, then press slash, and then C for copy. Notice that the cell range is already specified because we had highlighted it first. Then press enter. Now the range to copy to, let's move to the right, and this time we want to specify this range using a period. Press the period key on the keyboard. That creates a range. It anchors the range at that point, and then we just move the arrow with the arrow key to the right, and now it says E5 to F5, and then we press enter. And this cell, which contains a formula, this formula here, is copied to these two cells. And of course the numbers are different because now the formula is adding, in this cell the formula is adding E2 through E4, and moving to the right this formula is adding F2 through F4. So when you copy, again, when you copy a formula, the cells that are being referenced in the formula change depending on where the formula is located. Yeah. Now we'll show how to copy an entire range of data and place it somewhere else in the worksheet. This is similar to when we moved something, but we're also going to leave a copy in the original place. So let's press the slash key and then C for copy. And now let's choose the range. Let's just go ahead and select it from right where we are. Move up. Now we've selected the range. It goes from F5 back up to A1. And a range can be specified in either direction. Then press enter. And now a range to copy. The range to copy to is what we need to specify next. Let's move down and place our highlighted cell here. And when you specify a range to copy to, all you need to really specify is the upper left-hand corner of where you want the range to be. So choose this, and then the area, that data will be placed in this area here. So press enter, and now this data is copied down to this area. Next, we'll show how to refer to cells in a formula using relative or absolute referencing. And we'll show what happens when you copy formulas from one cell to another. Notice this cell that's highlighted here has this formula, C2 plus C3 plus C4. It's adding these three cells, and this is the result. As we mentioned earlier, when we copy this cell to another cell, the formula will no longer refer to the cells directly above it as it does here. It will refer to the ones above it here. Let's try this again. Let's press slash, C for copy, and range to copy from, that's the current cell, C5. Press enter, and range to copy to, let's just move to the right and copy to D5 and press enter. Now, when you move your arrow key to the right, you'll notice that this number is different than this one, of course, and it's also, up here you'll notice that it's the sum of D2, D3, and D4. When a formula refers to cells, such as these, it really refers to cells that have a certain relationship to the formula cell. This says C2, C3, and C4, but internally it really knows it as the third cell above, the second cell above, and the first cell above, and then it takes the sum of those. So when you copy the formula to another cell, it just duplicates that idea, and then the cells have the appropriate cell address. In this case, it's D2, D3, and D4. If we copied this over to here, it would be the same thing. The formula would automatically say E2, E3, E4. Now, there is a way to make a formula refer to a specific cell. In other words, to reference certain cells as opposed to this relative position kind of reference. And we'll show how to do this. Let's copy. Let's just use this cell that we've got here. Okay, we need to do an edit. Now remember to edit the information in a cell. You just use the F2 key. Press F2, and that brings up the formula here at the top. This is the current contents of that cell, and now we can make changes. The way to make a cell or formula refer to a specific cell is to use put a dollar sign before the letter and a dollar sign before the number in the cell address. So let's go back and type a dollar sign here, and then move to the next one and type a dollar sign there, and we'll do that the same thing all the way across. And then press enter. Now notice the formula has the dollar signs in it. Now the number is still the same here because it's adding these cells. But now when we copy this formula to a new location, you'll notice something a little bit different. Let's copy it. Press slash, C for copy. The range to copy from is the current cell, and the range to copy to, let's move to the next one over, and press enter. Now you'll notice that in this cell, the number is the same here, even though these numbers are different. That's because really we're not adding these numbers, we're still adding these three, because we put in what's called an absolute reference. These are absolute cell addresses. That means this formula will always take its value from these cells. And there may be, there are times when you want the formula to do that. Usually not in a situation like this, because you want this number to add these three. But there are situations where you want to refer to a specific cell, and this is how you do it. Use the dollar sign before the letter and before the number in the cell address. Now let's go back and change these to the appropriate formulas. Let's move back to the left, and we'll copy this formula. Press C for copy, and the current range, this is the current selected cell. Press enter. Now I'll move to here, and we'll copy that to two cells. Press period to anchor there, and then press the right arrow to choose both of these cells. And this is the range, these two cells, D5 and E5. And then press enter. Now, this formula with its relative addressing has been copied over to those cells. And now they give the result of the addition of the cells directly above them. Next, we're going to show how to automatically add cells using one of the at functions called at sum. Then we'll show how to average a group of cells using another at function called at avg, or average. Okay. Let's move to this cell here, and we want to place a function here, which is just a pre-programmed formula to add these three cells and place the result here. Now, of course, before we typed in plus C2 plus C3 and so forth. This time we want to place in an automatic function that does the same thing. To place a function in a cell, first we type the @ sign. Cut there. The @ sign is the little sign here on the 2 key. You type this by typing Shift and the number 2. So hold down the Shift key and type this, and that places an @ sign over here on the left. That's the beginning of our @sum function. Then we can type in the @sum function, which is just SUM, and then parentheses, and then all we need to put in is the range of cells that we want to sum. And remember that a range is indicated by typing the first cell, which is C2 in this case, C2, and then 2 dots, and then the last cell. In this case, it'll be C4, since we're summing C2, C3, and C4. Press C4 and parentheses. Now when we hit Enter, we'll get the sum of those 3 cells. Press Enter on the keyboard, and there we see the sum. We see the @ function appearing up here. And this can be used for any cells anywhere. They don't have to be right next to the cell. You can place a @sum formula anywhere that refers to any cells on the worksheet. Now another @ function that we'll show is @avg, which performs an average. Let's move the highlight over to this cell. Let's highlight this cell, and we're going to place the @avg function here, which will average all of these values in these 3 cells. And so first of all, press Shift and 2 for the @ sign. Then you can type in AVG, or there's another way, you can bring up a list of all of the functions that come with Lotus. And this is by pressing the F3 key. So press F3 after typing the @ sign, and we get a list of names of functions. Let's just use the down arrow key to scroll down through the list. Notice there'll be 4 items listed at the top here, and there's the one we want, AVG. But let's go ahead and scroll through this list so we can see how this works. It shows 4. This is just like when you retrieve something. We're using the down arrow key to go down 4 names at a time, or you can use the right arrow to move to the right, and the left arrow to move back. Now we're going to use the up arrow to move back up to the AVG value. This is just a way of going through the entire list of @ functions that are available. Okay, we'll highlight the AVG function and then press Enter. Now, up here, notice on the left, it has entered the AVG letters and the first or left parentheses, and now we just need to type in the cell addresses for this function. Remember, we want to average C2, D2, and E2. So type in C2, 2 dots, and then E2, and this is the range. And it doesn't matter whether the letters are in uppercase or lowercase. It doesn't make any difference. Then press the close parentheses, and then press Enter. Now, notice here on the right, the average of these 3 cells is in this cell. And it's the @avg function. Let's try copying this as we did earlier. /C for copy. We're going to copy from this highlighted cell. and then let's move down to these two cells below. We'll anchor the range there using the period, and then move down to select these two cells, and then press enter. And now that formula has been copied to these two cells. Of course, the values are different because it uses the normal relative cell reference. Notice in this cell it's averaging C3 through E3, and then C4 through E4 in this cell. So the same cell referencing applies whether you're using normal formulas or at functions. Next, we'll show the at PMT function, which will allow us to figure a monthly payment given the loan amount, the interest rate, and the term of the loan. This is just another at function that Lotus offers. We type in an at sign first. We're going to place the formula actually in this cell right here. And we type an at sign by holding down the shift key. We're holding down shift and pressing this 2. Now we'll press F3 to bring up a list of the at functions. Then scroll down through the list using the down arrow till we get to the area where it would be located, and there it is, the PMT function, and press enter. That places the PMT after the at and in the first parentheses, and then we need to type in 3 values. Now the 3 values that you need in a at PMT function are, again, loan amount, interest rate, and term. Now we have to put those 3 values into the formula or the function in the right order. And if we don't remember what the right order is, you can always use the help key, which is F1. When you're at this point in the middle of a formula or trying to enter something, you just press F1 there, and it gives you the screen that refers to that formula. And there we see at PMT, and there's the order: principal, interest, and term. The 3 values that we need, separated by commas. Now these can be actual numerical values. We can type in an actual number, or these can be cell addresses. And this tells you a little bit about what that function does. So once we've got that, make a note of that: principal, interest, term, separated by commas. Then use escape, press escape on the keyboard to go back to the normal screen. Now we'll type in the rest of this formula. We need the principal, which is the loan amount. And since we're going to actually use cell addresses for this, we'll type in cell addresses in the formula. The loan amount will be in the cell below this title, which is C2. So we'll type in that for the principal, C2, then a comma. Then we'll type the interest rate, which will be in cell D2, right here. And so we'll type D2, and then another comma. And then finally the term. The term will be in this cell down here, which is C5. Looking back over to the left there is C5. And close parentheses, and then press enter. Notice that it says error. That's because we don't have any values typed in here. If we already had the values in, then it would give us the answer. So let's type in some values for our loan amount, our interest rate, and our term. Move to the loan amount cell, which is C2, and let's type in 120,000. Over here on the left, notice this is where we're typing. We don't use any commas in the number itself. This is 120,000. We're going to buy a house. Then press enter. And now we need to type in an interest rate. Move over to the right, and let's type 8. Notice it appears on the left, 8, and then use the percent key, which is Shift 5, 8%, and then press enter. Notice it appears up here as 0.08. Then, for term, let's move our highlight down to the cell below term, and we'll type in the term, which is 30 years. 30 for 30 years. And press enter. Now, we have a monthly payment here, but it doesn't seem to be quite right, and that's because of the way we've entered in the interest rate and the term. The interest rate always has to be expressed as a monthly, or as an interest rate for the specified term. This is set up as if it were, if this were annual interest, then this would be 30 years. Then this comes out, this would be actually an annual payment, not a monthly payment. So to get a monthly payment, you need to divide the interest rate by 12 to get a monthly interest rate, and you need to multiply the term, 30, by 12 to get the number of months in 30 years. So the way we multiply and divide in a formula is to use symbols. Let's go back to the formula cell, and what we need to do is we need to divide the interest rate by 12. So we need to edit this formula, and remember, we edit a cell, edit a formula by using the F2 key. Press F2. Now we'll go back into the formula, and the way we indicate divide, we need to divide the number in cell D2 by 12. So we just type a slash, which means divide, and then 12. Now, in the formula, this means take the number that's in D2 and divide it by 12. And that's the number that will be used in the formula. Then we need to also multiply the number in C5 by 30. So move to there and type an asterisk, which means multiply, and then 12. So we're taking the term, which we have as 30, and multiplying it by 12 to get the actual months, because we don't want to figure out annual payments, we want to figure out monthly payments. And this will give us the number of months in our term. Now, of course, all of these cell addresses could be just values. We could type in numbers here if we wanted to, just type in the numbers instead of the cell address, and then just figure out a payment really quickly. But where we're using a little kind of a table or a worksheet setup here, we want to use cell addresses. That way we can go back and change, for instance, if we want to change the loan amount, we can change it right here in the cell, and it will automatically be changed in the formula. And we can figure out the payments for any loan amount. We can also change the interest rate or the term by just typing a new number in one of these cells. Now that we've got this formula set up, let's go ahead and press enter. And now we see a more realistic, correct monthly payment here. This is the actual monthly payment for a loan amount of $120,000 at 8% interest for a term of 30 years. And again, we had to put the 12s in there because we want to figure monthly payments, so we have to divide the interest rate, which is an annual figure, by 12, and we multiply the term by 12 to get the correct number of months. Now let's try figuring out a different loan amount. Go to the loan amount and press F2. We're going to edit the loan amount. And notice over on the left, loan amount appears. Let's go back and change this to 150,000. We'll delete the 2 and put in a 5. Press enter. Now watch the monthly payment figure, and it changes. There's the new monthly payment for $150,000. Let's also try changing the interest rate to see how that affects our monthly payment. Move to the right to highlight that cell, then press F2 to edit the information in the cell. Then over on the left, now you can see the interest rate appears. Let's change it to 9%. Just backspace to erase the 8 and put a 9 there. And press enter. Now watch the monthly payment. And now it's recomputed at the different interest rate. Now we'll show how to link worksheets together in a formula. We're going to place a formula in these cells that will take a figure from 2 other worksheets and add it together to have a total. We have worksheets that have information for the quarterly totals, and we'll sum 2 of those quarterly totals together to get a 6-month total for each of these. This is our first quarterly worksheet, and we're going to take these values here and place them in the other worksheet. Use them in the formula. Notice the name of this worksheet here at the bottom is QTR1.WK3, quarter 1. It's important for us to remember this. We need to know the name of the worksheet, and we also need to know the cell address of these cells. So these are cells F2 through F4. And here's the other quarterly file. Notice it's for a different quarter, and we'll also be using these cells in the formula. Notice the name of this file is QTR2.WK3, quarter 2. We'll need to remember that, and these cell addresses F2, 3, and 4. Now we've gone back to our worksheet with for the 6-month totals. We need to enter our formula in here. We begin typing in the formula by typing a plus. Formulas always begin with plus and then to indicate the name of the other file, we type the angle brackets. This is just above the comma. This is a shift comma, and then the name of the other file, which is QTR1.WK3, and then the angle bracket just above the period key, shift period, and then the name, or then the actual cell address. This is F2, and then we need to do a plus, type a plus, and then the name of the next worksheet, the quarterly worksheet, which is shift and comma to put the angle brackets, and then QTR and 2, then dot WK3, and then the close angle brackets, which is shift period, and then the name from the cell address from that one, which is F2 also, F2. Now, so we're adding together F2 from this worksheet plus F2 from this worksheet, and that will be placed in this cell. Now, and when you have it all typed in, press enter on the keyboard, and the total appears in this block. This is the total from those 2 cells. Notice when you actually press enter and it goes up here, it expresses the cell addresses as a range. Now, you could put a range of cells in there if you wanted to. This is expressed as a range. It's the same cell. Now we've got that formula in the cell, and this 6-month total is the total of the amounts on the two worksheets. And if you were to go back and change the amounts, or if there were some changes that had to be made in those worksheets, the change would be reflected here also. If you did make some changes, you would need to use what they call link refresh in order to update those changes. You do this by pressing the slash key and then choosing F for file and then A for admin. It's way over on the right. Admin. Press the letter A. And then back over on the left, L for link refresh. This will update the link between the things. Now there won't be any change right now, but if you had changed the totals on these other worksheets, then that would update the total in your linked worksheet. Now, if you want, now in order to put the same formula into these other cells, all you need to do is copy as we did before. And because of the relative addressing, the proper cell addresses will be placed in there. Let's try this. Press slash and then C for copy. Range to copy from is this current cell, and press enter. Now let's move down to this cell, and we're selecting a range to copy to. So we'll press a period to anchor the range there, and then press the down arrow to specify this range, C3 and C4. And press enter. And notice that these cells have numbers in them. Now remember, the original cell had a reference of F2 on those other worksheets. Let's move down to the next cell. Now you can see that it's automatically referenced the F3. It's automatically assumed that we want to take the next one down, and it's changed the cell addresses to agree with that. And moving on down to the bottom one, and it's automatically placed the F4 cell address in there. Next, we'll show how to create a graph quickly from some of the data in our worksheet. To create a graph, press slash and then press G for graph. Here in the menu at the top, choose T for type, and then choose B for bar. Then choose G for group, and moving over to the right, to the left, we need to choose the group range. We're going to highlight the range of data that we want to use in our graph. This is anchored here, so we need to move down and set our anchor there and highlight this area like this. We're going to use the rental, sales, and service as the information for our x-axis. And then we'll divide the data by columns. And in the graph, we'll indicate the numbers for May, June, and July according to these settings on the x-axis, these labels. Now when you've entered that range, press enter. And now, as we said, we're using the columns as the data ranges. So we want to choose column-wise by pressing C or enter. And then finally, we want to choose V for view. Press a V. And now we have our full screen graph on the screen. It fills the entire screen. It uses different patterns to represent the data. The numerical values are on the y-axis on the left. And then here at the bottom, we have the titles of the different categories. Let's move in for a closer look. We have rentals here and sales and service. We can add other items to our graph, such as titles and legends. Let's see how to do this. Press Escape to clear the graph from the screen. Then, to do the legend, choose Options. Press the letter O. Now, over on the left, we want to add a legend, first of all. So press an L for legend. Now we want to assign the legends. And we could choose each one of these data ranges and type in the actual legend we want to use. We would type in May for A and June and July. But we can also take this information from the graph itself. So let's choose range, so R for range. Then we need to specify the range. So let's move over to May. This is the range for our legend. We want May, June, and July. Since the data columns are, these are the columns that are in the graph, and we want to put the legend to show what those different patterns stand for. So we'll press period to anchor that there, and choose June and July, and press Enter. Now that we've set our the legend, now let's press Escape and move back to this menu and press V for View. Now, at the bottom of the graph, we have the legend. And it shows what the different patterns stand for. This one is May, and this one is June, and this is July, this pattern. Now we'll add a title to our graph. To clear the graph from the screen, press Escape, and we go back to this graph settings screen. Again, choose O for Options, and T for Titles. Press T. Now the first title is the title that appears at the top of the screen. Whatever title we want to have appear, we can just type in here. Press Enter. And this is the first line of the graph title. This is the actual title of the graph. So let's type the word income and press Enter. Notice now that this when we press titles again, we go to the graph legends and titles screen. These were the legends that we had set earlier. And on this screen we also have the titles listed here. This is the graph legends and titles screen. Now we can choose, let's choose a title for the x-axis. We could also put a second line and the main title at the top of the screen. That would be the second line there. We'll go ahead and skip that one, and let's choose an x-axis title. Since the x-axis was the category, we'll call it Department. Let's press Enter for x-axis, and the x-axis title will be Department. And press Enter. Then we can choose T for titles again, and now choose a y-axis title. And the y-axis would be thousands of dollars, or dollars. Let's press Enter for Y, and then type in dollars and press enter. Now we can also add a grid to our graph. Let's press a G for grid. We can choose horizontal or vertical or both. For a bar graph, it's probably best to have just horizontal lines. For a vertical bar graph, let's have horizontal lines, and press enter for that because it's already highlighted, or you can press H. Then press escape to clear this one, and go back to this one, and we'll choose V for view. Press V. Now we see the title at the top, main title, and down at the bottom we have department. This is rentals, sales, and service, the different departments. And then over on the left we have the y-axis, which is dollars, and then it says thousands, which was already there. And we have the legend at the bottom. Let's take a closer look at the y-axis label, or the y-axis title. It says dollars, thousands of dollars, and the department is at the bottom, along with the legend. Now we'll show how to print the graph. First, press escape to clear this graph from the screen. That gives us the graph settings screen again. Press escape to clear this. Now, let's take a closer look at the menu while we make the following choices. Choose P for print. Then, we want to send print output directly to a printer, so that's P for printer. Now, we want to send an image to the printer. Over to the right, we choose I for image. And it says, now it says at the top, print the current graph, which is this choice, current. Or if you had a different graph, you could name the graph. Current is what we want. We want to print the current graph. And then we press C for current. And press A for a line. Over the right there, I press A for a line. Press A. This is to align it on the paper, if necessary, for your printer. And if you don't need to do that, then all you have to do is press G for go. G for go. Print the specified graph or range, and it's printing. It sends it to the printer immediately. And in just a few moments, you'll have the printed output of your graph. And this is the final output from the laser printer. Next, we'll show how to use macros and how to create macros. A macro is simply a series of steps for some kind of task you want to perform in Lotus. And you record the series of steps with them in a macro instruction, and then use one or two keys to activate that macro. For instance, we're going to create a macro that will automatically add a column. And we'll also create one that will automatically erase a cell. And then we'll do another one that will automatically save an existing file on the disk. And you can create macros for any kind of task or combination of tasks just by simply typing in the commands into the macro list. We create a macro by going to a blank area of the worksheet and typing in first the macro name. We need to, ahead of time, decide on a name and what commands we're going to use in the macro, and then some kind of description. And to create a macro, to type in the name, the first thing you do is type an apostrophe. That lets Lotus know that this is going to be a macro. So you type the apostrophe. Notice it appears in the upper left-hand corner as we're typing it in. And then the next thing is to actually type the name of the macro, which will be, we use a backslash for that, backslash, and then we're going to use the letter C for this one. We'll just type a C on the keyboard, and now we have the macro name. So then press the right arrow to move to the next cell. Now that leaves the macro name here. And if you wanted to, you could put a cell above this that says name, so you know what this is. And then in this cell, we're going to actually record the steps for the macro. This will be just like pressing the keys that activate the different menu items. So we need to actually enter in the different codes that will be performed in our macro. And these are just the normal things that you use that you choose from the menus. Of course, to start off with, when we're going to add a column, so the steps that we would go through to add a column would be first just type the slash key. So that's the first thing we want to enter. But of course, to identify this as a macro, we're going to type an apostrophe first. So type an apostrophe, and notice up here in the upper left-hand corner, on the entry line, you see the apostrophe there. And then we type in, the next thing we type in is a slash. And that's the first step in our in performing this command. We would type a slash, and that activates the menu. And then we choose from the menu, we choose W. So let's type a W. And then the next command, that would be for worksheet. And the next command would be I for insert. And then we would type a C for column. So these are the commands that would actually add a column in our worksheet. And finally, we need to somehow indicate the pressing of an enter key in the formula, or in the steps. So the symbol we use to represent pressing the enter key in a macro is a tilde symbol, which is right here. So we just need to hold down Shift and press this key to enter the tilde. Now we're finished entering the commands for this macro. You can press Enter on the keyboard, or you can also use the arrow key to move to the right, to move to the next cell to the right. Now, looking back down to the cell, we have the title, the name of the macro, and then the actual steps that'll be performed when we perform the macro. Now here we can add a description, type in a description of the macro. We don't really need this, but this will help us to remember what the macro does in the future. So let's just type in add column. And we'll move back up here to the left so we can see it being typed in. Just type ADD, add column, and then just press enter. And now notice that's down here in the cell. Now we have our macro in our worksheet, and when we save the worksheet, that'll be saved with it. Okay, so now what we need to do is tell Lotus that this is the actual name of the macro. These are the macro instructions here in this cell. We'll identify this as the name. And so let's go back to that cell. We'll highlight that cell. And then press slash and R for range. Then N for name. And then L for labels. So what we're doing here is we're naming, we're giving a label or a name to a range of cells. In this case, it's just the one cell. This cell here is the actual macro instruction, and we're going to identify this cell as the name of this cell. So this tells us when right is highlighted here, this means that this cell will be the name for the cell on its right. If we were to use down, then this cell would be the name for the cell below it. And you could put this macro information in the cell below and identify this as the label for the cell below, or on the left, or even above. For now, let's choose write. We'll just press an R for write. And now we can actually enter the label range, and if we had more than one cell in the range, we could identify that by moving the arrow keys. But we just need this one cell. D8 is the actual label or the name of that for that macro. And press enter. Now this has been identified and recorded as the name for this macro. Now we can go back. We can actually use it by pressing Alt and typing the letter C, which is what this means. So let's try that. Let's move our cursor back up into the worksheet area here. What we'll do is we'll use the macro to insert a new column here. So we need to use the Alt key for this. Hold down the Alt key and press the letter C. And that performs the macro, which inserts the column here. And all it did was perform these steps: slash, then WIC, and then the little tilde key represents enter. It just performed those steps and just did it all automatically. Now we're going to create another macro, and we'll put it down below this this one. And this time we're going to give it a name. It's more of a descriptive name, and then we'll show how to choose that, how to run that macro. Let's move down here and highlight. We need to leave a blank row between macros in the worksheet. And let's create a new one here. This one will be one that we can use to save an existing file on the disk. So we're going to call it, we're going to give it the name save. Notice we typed it in here in the upper left-hand corner, and now when you press enter, then that's in the cell there. We move to the cell to the right, and here we'll enter the actual steps for the macro. Okay, first let's review what the steps would be for saving a worksheet. We'll just briefly demonstrate these. We would type a slash, and then of course you would type file, and then you would type an S for save, and then it asks you to enter the name of the file to save, and it's the current file. This is the current name, so this would come up, and then you would just press enter to save that. So we'll press enter now. And then it always asks you if you want to cancel or to replace the existing file. It's an existing file on the disk, so do you want to replace it, or do you want to make a backup copy of it? And then you would just choose R for replace. So those are the steps. It's slash, then F for file, S for save, and then press enter to accept the name of the file, and then R for replace. So let's just press escape several times to back out of this menu, and now we'll go and actually enter those in here. And when you're doing this, you may want to step through those and then write the commands down so that you can remember what they are and what order they go in, and then you can just type them in when you're creating your macro. So let's type in the first thing we need to type in when we're not going to start with a letter. We're going to start with a slash first, so we need to type in an apostrophe so it knows that it's a label. So type an apostrophe on the keyboard, and we'll take a closer look at these entries up in the upper left-hand corner. You have an apostrophe, and then the next step was slash, and then F for file, and then S for save. And it doesn't matter if these are lowercase or uppercase letters. And then we type the tilde. Remember, the tilde was the shift, and then the upper left-hand corner key, the tilde key. On most keyboards, it's next to the 1. And then that was for enter, to choose the name, to accept the name of the file. And then next thing we need to choose R for replace. So we type in R. And then this is all we need in our macro. So press enter to enter that into the cell. And then notice that it's here in the cell. And then we can add a description. This is what we do to save an existing file. So we'll type that in here. Save existing file. And that just means to save the file that's currently on the screen. Press enter. And now we have that information down here. Now we need to go back over and record this cell as the name of the macro. So remember we did that by pressing slash and choosing R for range. We're identifying a range of cells, and then N for name. We're picking a name for the range of cells. In this case, it's just one cell. And then L for labels. We're going to choose a label from the worksheet itself as the name of the range. So L for labels, and then it'll be R for write. And again, this means that this label, this cell, will be the name of the cell to the right of it. And so press R for write, and then the label range will be the currently highlighted cell. We could, if our highlighted cell was somewhere else, then at this point we'd have to move the cursor to this cell and then identify that as the label range. And press enter. And now that has been saved. Now you can't activate this macro with a shortcut key like we did before, like Alt-C. You have to choose it from a list. So, okay, stop there. To activate this macro, we need to use the run command. And for run, you just hold down Alt, hold down Alt, and press F3. This is for run. And then it gives you a list of the macros that are available to run. Notice we have the first one that we did. You can run it this way too, by just selecting it here and then running it. Now this one's highlighted. You could highlight either one of these using the arrow keys and then press enter to run the macro. We've highlighted the one we've created called save. Let's go ahead and press enter. And it performs the save automatically. You saw the menu flash by there quickly. It goes ahead and does the / file, save, enter, R automatically. Now it saved that file quickly on the disk without you having to push all those keystrokes. Next, we'll show how to sort information in a table in Lotus. We have some information here, some names, department, salary. This can be any kind of data that you have organized in a table. And we can sort this information by pressing the / key and then choosing data. Over on the right, you'll find the data, and then that's D for data, and then S for sort, and then data range, that's D for data range. Now we need to enter the data range, and the actual data is all we need. We don't want to put the headings in there, just the actual data. Go ahead and highlight. We need to, of course, we need to anchor that right there with a period, and then highlight all of those cells, the actual data. Then press enter. And then from this list, choose primary key. This is the we're going to choose the item we want to sort by, whether it's the last name or first name or whatever. That's the primary key. So type a P for primary. And the primary sort key, we're just going to use this column, which is the last name column, to sort by. So let's just choose enter. And over on the right, you see we also can choose the sort order, A or D. A is for ascending, and D is for descending. we want it in ascending alphabetical order, in other words, starting from A and going to Z. So let's change this D to an A. We just type an A there. Type an A on the keyboard and then press enter. And then to do the actual sort, we need to choose Go. Go is over here on the right. Just press the letter G for Go. Now watch this information here as we press it. Watch how it changes. It'll resort it in alphabetical order. Press a G for Go. And notice it's all been resorted now in alphabetical order. And all the appropriate information in these rows has stayed with the right person. You notice the names are still the right names, and the other information, it's sorted everything by rows. Okay, now we can also use two sorting keys. You notice we just chose one key. We only sorted just by this. We can sort by other data also. We could sort by last name and salary, or last name and first name. Let's do that. Let's sort by last name first and then by first name. Okay, to do that, of course, we don't really need to do that in this case, because the only place it would make any difference is where we have two people with the same last name. It would sort their names in alphabetical order, their first names. These are already sorted in alphabetical order. But, or if we had a lot of people with the same name that were that had the different salaries, we could sort by the name and then by the salary. Or you could make a salary your primary key and sort by that first, and then a lot of people who had the same salary, you could sort them alphabetically. Let's choose, let's just do the last name and the first name, just to show how to set up a secondary key. Let's press slash, and then D for data, and then it will be S for sort, and D for data range, and then we choose the data range again. Now, since we already chose it, it still has that highlighted. So we go ahead and press enter. And now we want to choose the primary key, P for primary, and this is what we want to use as the primary key. We want to sort by the last name first. Press enter, and then over here A or D. A is already there, ascending. Press enter. And then to choose the secondary key, we can just type an S for secondary key, and then choose the secondary sort. Let's move to this one. And all we have to do is highlight just one of the cells in that column, and it'll use that column for the secondary key. Press enter, and then you have the same choice here, ascending or descending. Type in an A for ascending, and then press enter. And then press go to actually do the sort. Press go, or G for go, and it will sort this information. Now, it doesn't look any different because it was already sorted, these two names. But if we had many people, for instance, named Smith, their names would all be sorted in alphabetical order by first name. You can always set up two keys to sort the data by. Stop there. Next, we'll show how to use the query feature to find information in our data list. What we basically have here is a database contained in a worksheet in Lotus. You can of course have as much data in here as a worksheet can hold. It can have hundreds and hundreds of records, individual files, and probably dozens or hundreds of fields. You can store whatever kind of data you want. And basically what you do is define this area as a database, and then you can use some of the query features to find information in the database, and then also to extract information. We'll show how to do this. To perform a database query, we need to define to Lotus what our database is, what area of our worksheet constitutes the database. And then we also need to define what's called a criteria range. This is a small area of the worksheet where we specify what information we're looking for. Let's first create a criteria range. Over here, we'll do it over here to the side. You can place it anywhere in your worksheet. It's best to have it away from the worksheet database data. Let's put it over here to the side. We'll move our cursor over and highlight a cell over here. And what we're going to do, we could use the query to find any information in any one of these categories. We're going to use it to find someone by name, and we'll also show how to use some of the other ones. So let's type the name. Let's type the word name in here. Type it on the keyboard, and it appears above. And then when you press enter, it appears here. And it's important that this title here be spelled exactly the same as one of these headings. It has to be the same as one of these headings at the top. So we're choosing the name heading, and below that, let's press an arrow key, and let's type in a name that we want to search for. Let's look for someone named Hansen. So look for the last name Hansen. We've typed in Hansen over on the left. Press enter, and the name appears here. Now we need to actually define, actually do the query, the search. Press slash to bring up the menu, and then we're going to do a data feature. So let's press D for data, and the data operation is query. So press Q for query. Now we need to do two things. We need to define an input range. We need to let Lotus know that this is the area that we want to search. And of course, if it was a large database, we'd need to define the entire area. So press I for input. We're going to specify. And let's move, now let's highlight the input range. That's the entire database, including the headings at the top. Now let's move our cursor over to this upper left-hand corner and press a period for anchor, to anchor it there, and then we'll move over and select the entire database. Now you can also, of course, you can also type in these values. You can type in A1, E8. If it's a long database, if it's a large one, you may not want to scroll all the way down to it. If you know where the last cell is, then you can type that into the range. Let's press enter now to define this as our input range. Now we need to define a criteria range. We'll press C for criteria. And now we need to choose the criteria range, and that would be the name, the word name, the label here, and the actual name that we're searching for. Let's press a period to anchor that, and then move up to select the entire range. And this is the criteria range. Now we press enter. Okay, now to perform the query, we choose find. In this case, we're just trying to find the name Hansen in our database. And so we just press an F for find, and then what it does is it highlights that information, that line. It finds the name Hansen, and it highlights that entire row in the database. And then you use your arrow keys to move through all of the to any other possibilities. You can see that there is another name Hansen. If we had many people named Hansen, we could move down using the arrow keys, and it would highlight everybody named Hansen. Press down arrow, and it will highlight the next one. And now if we press a down arrow again, we get a warning that there are no more Hansens. And we go back up, and it's the same thing. When we get up, To the top, there are no more Hansons. These are all the Hansons you can find. Now we could also do the same thing. We could set up our criteria range with a different name. We could type a different person's name into here. Once these have been set, just type a different person's name and do a find again, and it would find that name. Or we could choose a different criteria here and search for it. Let's do a search for under salary for all of the people who have a salary greater than a certain amount. You can also do that. You can put a kind of a formula in here to find certain values. Let's go back and let's notice that up in the upper right hand corner it still says find. To escape from this find feature, just press the escape key on the keyboard. Now we're back to the normal menu, and let's press escape a couple more times to back out of all these menus. Now we're back to the normal ready mode. Let's change this criteria here. Instead of name, we want to look for salary. So let's just delete this by pressing. Let's just press F2 to edit this information, then use backspace, and then we'll type in salary. And make sure you have the spelling right. It has to match the heading, the actual heading exactly, and then press enter. Now we need to go through and we need to put what we're looking for. So let's press F2 again to edit, and this time we'll backspace and clear it out, and this time we're going to put in a value. We wanted to search for everyone who makes more than a certain amount, such as greater than 2,000. So let's try this. Let's type in greater than 2,000. The greater than key is the shift period key, and then 2,000, and then press enter. Now over on the right you can see that we have salary 2,000. Now we've already defined this little block, these two cells, as our criteria range, so we don't have to do that again. Whatever criteria heading is here and whatever is here, we'll use that for the criteria for the search. All we have to do is go back and do the find operation again. So press slash, then press D for data, the letter D, and then Q for query, and then F for find. And here it's automatically done the find operation. It has found the first record where the salary is more than $2,000. And as we use our arrow keys, use your arrow keys and move down through, it highlighted this one also because this one is also more than $2,000. Watch the next one. This one is not more than 2,000. It's exactly 2,000. So let's see what happens when we go move the arrow key down. It skipped over that one because it doesn't satisfy the criteria. We set up the criteria over here of greater than 2,000. It went to the next one that was greater than. And as we go down further in the list, it finds this one. And then let's press the arrow key one more time, the down arrow, and we get an error. It won't go any further because this one does not satisfy the criteria. So using the arrow keys, we just can see the ones that satisfy that criteria. And of course, again, if you had a long list, a long database, you would be able to go down through and it would highlight each one that satisfied the criteria and help you find that one. Now we'll show how to not only find data, but extract data from the database and place it somewhere else in the worksheet. To do that, we not only need to define an input range, which we've already done here, and a criteria range, but we also need to define an output range, somewhere where the information will be brought out and will be listed. And we should find an area where there's plenty of room underneath it, because if we find several different records that match the criteria, then we need to have room for all of those to be listed. Let's move over to the right. And of course this could be anywhere in your worksheet, but we're going to place it here on the right. And first of all, we need to escape out of this find mode that we're in by just pressing escape, and then pressing escape repeatedly till we get back to the ready mode. Then let's create our output range. Let's move down here and we'll put in a heading. What we want to do we want to find everybody who makes more than $2,000, and we want to place their name, their last name, weird, place their last name and their department in these areas here. Let's type in name. Over on the left, we can see where it's typing in. Press enter, and again make sure it's exactly the same as the actual heading. And then move to the right and type department. Press enter. Now this will be the output headings, name and the department. Then below that will be the actual output range. Now we need to define this as the output range, and we do that by going back and using slash D for data, then Q for query, and then O for output to define the output range. Now we'll define this output range here, and what you need to do is you can anchor the heading, anchor the range there, and then move to the left. Now if we only wanted to be able to show a few rows, we could move down and select just a small block. But if we just select the headings, then the output range will automatically be everything below that. So you want to make sure there's nothing below that, any data, any important data, because if you end up with a lot of information being extracted, it will fill up and erase those any other cells below this that have information in them. Now this is our output range. Let's press enter. Now instead of find, we want to use extract. We're going to extract information from the database and place it here. And again, this could be anywhere in the worksheet. So press E for extract, and there we have a list of all of the employees who their names are here and who make more than $2,000, and this is their department. And you could use any of the headings in this extract area, and any criteria. You could look for years of service. You could look for any other criteria that might be in your database. Now one more thing we'll show, and that's how to use wildcards in your search criteria. Let's go back up and change. Let's first move escape from this mode that we're in by pressing escape until we're back to the ready mode. And now let's go back up and change our search criteria. Let's change this back to name. We're going to look for somebody by name again. And let's press an F2 to edit that cell, and we'll change that to name. Press enter. Now it's name again. And then in the one below, we'll enter the criteria. Press F2 to edit, and backspace. Now what we want to do is we want to search for everybody whose name begins with H. So all we have to do is type in an H and then an asterisk. An H asterisk tells the computer to search for H and then anything after it in the name category. So press enter, and now that's the criteria that we've set in here is H asterisk. It will search for all the names beginning with H. You could use an asterisk before the letter to find names that end with H or end with some other letter. So this becomes the criteria. Now we've already identified this as the criteria range. We don't need to do that again. We've just put in a different heading here and a different criteria to use for the search. Now we're going to do an extract this time We could do just a find if we wanted to. We'll do an extract, and we'll actually extract the name and the department of all the people whose names begin with H. So let's go back and press slash, and D for data, and then Q for query, and then finally E for extract. Press E, and now in our extract range on the right we have all the names that begin with H and their departments.
The video you just watched contains intermediate features. But you and your coworkers can gain powerful computer skills from our advanced video package. For only $149.50, you'll get advanced videos on Windows, Microsoft Word for Windows, Excel, WordPerfect, Lotus, and DOS. In 2 hours or less per video, you can learn dozens of powerful time-saving skills. Sometimes a single feature can save hundreds of hours of labor. And if you or someone you know needs a solid foundation in the basics of using computer software, we have the answer. For only $119.95, you'll get beginning videos on Windows, Microsoft Word for Windows, Excel, WordPerfect, Lotus, and DOS. That's $119.95 for beginning videos on Windows, Microsoft Word, Excel, WordPerfect, Lotus, and DOS. For those who need a solid foundation in the basics of using computer software. We ship all orders the day we receive them. You'll get your tapes in 7 to 10 working days. For another $8, we'll rush your order for delivery in 3 working days. To order the advanced package, all 6 videos for just $149.50, just call this number, 1-800-999-3279. Order now. To order the beginning package, all 6 videos for just $119.95, just call this number,